The dreaded October lull. Have you heard of it? A lot of people have experienced it. I've experienced it in the past. And I want to tell you how not only did I cure my ailment of the dreaded October lull, but I know why it was caused. And this is going back into the late 80s, 90s, somewhere around there. It's been a long time. This is very common on a lot of client properties you go to when we analyze their hunting and what they've been doing in the past. Because a lot of people, they hire us to design their habitat when really, not only do we design their habitat, but they really need help with how they hunt the land and not spook deer. Because there's so much habitat that you can stick on a property. You go on public land, you find great chunks of habitat, great bedding cover, diversity, food sources. But then what happens? Just because you have that great habitat, just because you spent months and months either finding it or building it, doesn't mean you're going to have a great hunt. And a lot of people experience the dreaded October lull, which is when deer turn nocturnal sometime in October. But it's not just October. And what I mean by that is your hunting season opens September 15th. A lot of people experience the October lull September 20th, the 25th. If you're opener like in Michigan, Ohio, around October 1st, then you start to experience the October lull a few days after that. You experience it because of hunting pressure. That's the October lull. It's a real thing, but it's caused by you. So it's not a biological thing. It's not a time of season thing. It's not just deer go into this dreaded October lull and now they just disappear and they only move at night. Deer do not only move at night. Yeah, it's real, but it's because of lack of food, cover, and it's because of hunting pressure. Usually a combination of all of those, but definitely hunting pressure. So deer move under the cover of darkness, but deer feed five times in a 24-hour period. I say that all the time because it sets the table for how they move throughout an entire 24-hour clock. And so what I mean by that is you spook deer, they go somewhere else, a mile away, mile and a half away or more, and you only see them in the middle of the night because they have so far to come back to your land. But because of that feeding clock where they're feeding every 4 hours, 5 times in a 24-hour period, then they need to be up on their feet and feeding. And especially that afternoon food source where they've been sitting and eating dried twigs, acorns, woody shrub tips all day. They cannot wait to go hit a great food source right before dark. They've been sitting all day in their bedding area, not really moving much at all. So then all of a sudden they take off and they go find that food source. If you don't have that food source, if it's pressured, if you don't have good unpressured covered, then those deer are going to move on your property after dark. And it might be middle of the night because they're coming from a long ways away to actually get there. That's the October lull. It's not a biological thing. It's not that the acorns are dropping. We have this beautiful shed display here, but one of them is hitting my rear end and it keeps moving around, so sorry about that. Acorns don't matter. Your acorns are dropping early and mid-October, especially the red oak, and people will say, boy, acorns are dropping, that's why they're nocturnal. No, deer can't eat acorns 5 times in a 24-hour period. They have to have diversity. They have to have greens. They have to have something to wash it down. Acorns are very hard to digest for deer. They're similar to woody browse, meaning woody shrub tips, hardwood regeneration, hard to digest. That's why fawns are born in the spring. They have succulent green herbaceous growth in June, July, August. But sometime in September, October, the weeds start dying. That green herbaceous growth is not available in the woods. And that's the age at which a fawn can actually start to eat that woody browse, including acorns, and digest it. They can't digest that in the spring. So fawns are born at a time where they can actually eat what's growing there around them. It's nature's way. It's a perfect way. That's why those deer that are sitting in their bedding areas all day, if acorns are raining down, yeah, that covers a couple of their feedings. More like early morning, late morning, 4 or 5 hours apart. But then when it comes to right before dark, they want to actually hit some food. So if the acorns are dropping and they're not hitting your food plots on your land, they're not hitting an apple orchard, something that you're hunting, an old apple orchard, overgrown area out on public land. Maybe you have an area of white oak acorns, which are a lot more succulent to deer. They're larger, they're sweeter. Maybe they're not hitting those, but they're back in their bedding areas hitting red oak acorns. And they don't want to come hit the white oaks on public land that you found. It's because they're pressured. It's because of the hunting pressure that's been applied. A lot of times, and I'll see like this in the southeast where people are studying deer, they'll say, well, deer don't come into open food sources when the acorns are dropping. They don't come into an open food plot. They don't come into green fields. That's because they drove their ATV to the blind. They walked in and out of a blind that's on the food source. Well, of course those deer are not going to come out during the daylight. So instead of, and this is part of the problem, we need to look inward as hunters. Pressured food kills land. It kills your hunt. It's very critical to understand you cause it. We need to look inward when it comes to the October lull and a lot of our hunting failures. People say, well, the acorns are dropping. They're not eating green. Well, they don't like brassica. They're on the neighbor's food, whatever it might be. The bottom line is, we cause this to happen. We cause green food plots to all of a sudden not be used, even though they've been used all of August, all of September, all of a sudden October. It's the lull. They're not using those food sources. It's because of us. You need to look inward. We have a lot more to control, whether it's deer numbers, number of deer on our land, private lands, areas we can find on public land. We have a lot more control than we give ourselves credit for, and that's part of the problem with hunting. And that's also what gives you opportunity. Because 97% of hunters out there are overhunting their food sources. They're pressuring their lands. They don't even have those food sources to begin with. Deer go elsewhere. And if you're smart, you hunt well, you scout on public land, you build it on private land, then you're going to be one of those 3%ers that actually lull-proofs the land, not only because of having good food, decent cover, you don't even need the best of cover, but making sure it's an unpressured land, and that way you'll never experience the October lull. Think of hunting, especially when you get into October. Now there's all those times where you have your rut hunt, you go away for a long weekend, you have a week to hunt. Maybe towards the end of that hunt and you're not going to be hunting anymore. Well, go all in then. Go in the middle of the bedding area. Go into your favorite stand in the middle of the property. You have one more day to hunt. But if you're hunting the same lands, public or private land, for the entire season, it's a jab, jab, jab. It's not the knockout punch. You're hunting smart. Big difference. You're taking measured steps and strategic hunts to actually go in when the time is right. You're hunting more on the outside. You're hunting in between food sources, not on the food source. You're not getting into a bedding area and spooking them. You're really controlling your downwind scent. You're not relying on some contraption or dust or spray to control your scent. Maybe a spray or gel, like we use LimiShield when we're going in and out. We want our legs clean. We don't want to leave a human trail going in and out of our stands. But when it actually comes to being on stand, the number one way to control your scent is just to blow it in an area where there's no deer. So the number one form of scent control is stand location. But if you hunt carefully and strategically, then you'll never experience the October lull. If you have that quality food source, adequate cover. And when I say adequate cover, you don't need the best habitat. Because let's say the best habitat where it's upland cover, hardwood regeneration, shrubs, grasses, weeds, briars, all combined into one, a little bit of conifer. Perfect habitat for a lot of different species, not just deer. But if you pressure it, in a deer's eyes, that's not great habitat. So a lot of us pat ourselves on the back with great habitat or even finding it on public land. But if you pressure it, you have to remember that that erases all level of quality in a deer's eyes. They could care less about the diversity of that if you apply your hunting pressure. Again, hunt smart. I'm going into a spot tonight to hunt. It's not on a major food source. It's not on a water hole. It's not even a bedding area. It's just simply a transition area. We know that bow is down there certain time today. Big buck we're after. But the bottom line is I'm going in to I can go in right off the edge of the field, through a big bank of switchgrass. I can go into the woods about 30 yards, sit down, watch a little funnel. If something happens to go by, great. Get a shot, blowing my scent right back out into the field. Managing my scent cone. Just a jab. Not going into my favorite rut cruising spot. I'm not going into a food source where I have potential spooking deer. There's a water hole on the property, the Hermit water hole. We have some good bucks hitting that water. It's also a little bit more invasive, so save that. It's a careful hunt. I shot and won a nice buck there a couple years ago, but it's not the perfect setup for getting in and out and never spooking a deer. I feel pretty confident 80% of the time, 90% of the time we can get in and out. But tonight it's early. It's early in the season. I don't want the October lull to start on our land ever, so I'm not going in for broke. I'm going into a nice stand where we have good movement, and I'm going to manage a hunt with a jab, jab, jab instead of a knockout punch. And the bottom line is, when it comes to the October lull, you never need to experience it on your land if you follow these tips right here for how to avoid the October lull this season and beyond. Now, I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, our WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also, Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. Everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there. And then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things. And this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.